18th, we need the Hyde Park
I was standing.
Planning Board. Please take note of the exits around the room and now join me as we salute the American flag.
There you go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank you for that enthusiasm over on the consultant side, leaping up so quickly. The first item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for carriage trails, also known as Crofton Mews. This is for an extension of the time in which to complete substantial construction. As we all know, up here, Mr. Kaufman, Mr. Brandt, who are here present tonight, have been meeting with us offline as well as online to discuss how to move this forward. They've submitted an extensive amended site plan application. Ms. Moss, I think that's probably it right there to Mr. Kaufman's left. Ms. Moss viewed it as administratively incomplete because she believes that it needs to have variances for density as well as, I believe, scale. So that's a separate topic. Right now, we're just on the originally approved plan and the extension of the time in which to complete substantial construction because construction was started. May I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Peter's here
Hey.
with longer hair
Yeah.
and a mustache.
Who is that man? I just said, who's it? I just walked in.
It's my brother.
Sorry. All in favor, please say aye.
Focus on me.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Kaufman. We throw it to you. You have a lot of papers out there.
I do. Well, that's only a small portion of the history of this project. I am here today to get an extension
Oh, please
of...
use your microphone now that we're back, live and in person. Put it on your nose.
Okay, how's that? Okay, I'm here today because we are seeking an extension of the existing site plan approval as a placeholder, as it's been described, while we submit a site plan that modifies that plan to reflect the current conditions economically and, the fact that the wetlands had expanded. So we have eliminated several units, 668 to be exact. We have in that corner of the property, which housed the 68 units, it's now open space, and we've added turtle mitigation measures, all of which were part of a plan that we were trying to get in front of the board, but we're unsuccessful.
Wait, it's only unsuccessful because you need to apply to the zoning board of appeals per Ms. Moss.
Right. So
Once
that
you
would
do,
only...
once you do, we can all see the plans.
Yeah, okay, except that that only would apply if you require the new zoning requirements. And it was very clear that the board was not going to require that, and therefore would eliminate any necessity of a variance. And it was, in fact, I was told that in the October meeting, and I was like, oh my, why aren't you jumping up and down, Lou? Well, that's because I'm here today, and it seems to be backed off of that.
To correct that statement, in my memory, it is not that we were not going to have the new zoning apply, it was that we were willing to give you the density that applies under the old zoning. If that requires, per Ms. Moss, a variance, I believe that the board up here would make a positive recommendation for that. But you are interpreting, I believe, one section of code without reading both sections of code, and I'll defer to Victoria shortly. But you were taking one section out that lets the planning board kind of make a decision, but when you read them in tandem, it's still the zoning administrator who makes the decision.
The zoning administrator makes the decision on whether the application is complete. It was up to the board, and she even cited, I didn't pull that section, she cited it, and she misquoted it when she said that the board must apply the new, she misquoted it, it said may.
Mm-hmm.
And the board was very clear that it was, in its discretion, was going to allow the old zoning requirements, certainly as to density and scale. And I didn't only rely on my memory, I played back the meeting of October 20th.
I'll have to
And
check
it
the
was-
minutes. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
that needs-
and it was very clear then that certainly yourself, Mr. Chairman, and the board, as it was, as we went around the room, that there was, in the effort to, once again, to facilitate this development, get it started, avoid litigation and all of the reasons cited, and that this was a better plan, and et cetera, that the board was willing to allow us to use the old zoning. Now, I'm not even referring to all of the bulk requirements. I'm specifically referring to density and scale. In the old zone, there was no scale. Under the new zone, scale is required, and anybody that reads the way it's written and the way Tad is interpreting it, that any building on one lot must be no more than 6,000 gross square feet, and that includes parking spaces that would be used to that are required under that zoning. So, to my reading, 6,000 square feet on a 55-acre lot, which is specifically what Tad used as an example, is an absurdity. And if it's interpreted that way, that would mean your zoning code requires a variance in every circumstance, because in a neighborhood core zone where you're allowed 4 units to the acre, it was once 6 units to the acre, how could you ever comply? So let's take another step and let's add to the burden for a ridiculous requirement, because that's what it is. 6,000 square feet on a 55-acre lot, or go for a variance. That's what I'm being compelled to do under the letter that Tad wrote. As to the density, you people, let's just use density. You said you'd allow the other density. We're talking about...
We're in favor of the other density.
Okay, so the question really is it the board's discretion, or does Tad have the veto power?
So-
And I think that's an answer that I can see.
In New York, the planning board does not interpret the zoning law. Interpretation of the zoning law in the first instance here is the zoning administrator, and if you disagree, there's an appeal to the zoning board of appeals. They are a quasi-judicial body. They get to interpret the law or overturn any decision that they feel was made in error. This planning board, however, is bound by the zoning administrator's decision. I will also point out that under section 108-9.6 of the code, it does say that any previously approved site plan, whether or not conditions have been satisfied, shall be completed within 3 years of the date of adoption of this chapter, September 8th, 2005. So it gave you until September, 2008, or shall be subject to the requirements of this chapter. So there was a grandfathering provision built into the code to allow these existing projects to proceed under the old zoning law, but you had to build. And, this project was approved in 2003. It's now almost 2023. And Tad has determined that if you start making changes, you have to comply with the new existing zoning law. It's not even new anymore. I don't even want to call it new.
So Tad had made determinations on very similar changes in the past that didn't even require a new application, and she determined they were minor changes. As an example, we changed, the ownership was changed from apartments to a condominium. That would have required 317 new tax lots or new tax designations. We're not pursuing that. Is that a minor change? I'll guarantee you the tax assessor won't think it's that. The units...
Wait, the board does not review ownership, as
Yeah.
you know. That doesn't make a difference to us, sorry. That would be
Well,
a
then
minor
why did you
change. That'd
pass
be
a
minor-
resolution agreeing to it?
That would be a minor change for us, in other words. Chad, we always pass resolutions to try to create something solid for the record to show what changes have been there, have been reviewed and looked at.
But yeah, the ownership structure is generally not an issue for this board. We regulate the use, not the user. So if
Okay,
it's still
so-
apartments, it's the structure of the building.
So okay. So Tad, determines how the zoning is applied. The board determined that they, in their discretion, would apply the old zoning. Do you have the discretion or not? Does that law apply? Is she going to interpret it under the new code
Well, we
or
would-
the code that it was?
So your frustrations are noted, but unfortunately for you, this is not the forum, we can't make this decision. I can't make the decision, the board can't make the decision.
I'm sorry, what does 9.6B say? Does it not say that the board in its
The board
discretion
says
may apply the,
extend- Hold on, the planning board may, in its discretion, after conducting a public hearing, grant an extension to an approved site plan. And that's what they've been doing since 2003.
9.6B says
Yes,
that?
9.6B. Planning board may, at its discretion, after conducting a public hearing, grant an extension to an approved site plan. In granting the extension, the planning board may require revision of the previously approved site plan to comply with current regulations and conditions. If you go to subsection D, however, that's where it says you have 3 years and then it has to comply. So. the
I
board-
am complying.
The board's
9.6B
been
is,
exercising its discretion
yes,
for
exercise
almost
your
20 years.
discretion and do what you said you were going to do in October.
to
Exactly
extend the
right.
site plan. But the zoning administrator has now weighed in and said, if you're gonna make changes to the site plan, the changes are triggering the new code. We're not talking about your current pending extension. The board has a resolution before it tonight to again extend the plans despite the lack of progress.
The approved plan.
Right, the approved plan. But despite the fact that there has not been any construction at the site since 2008, the board is going to grant an extension, if they vote on it tonight, to make that extension. What you're talking about is a different issue that's not before the board. You're talking about changes to the site plan set.
Why isn't that before the board tonight? Why isn't the board
Because-
going to
because-
vote and
stop,
tell
stop
us?
right now, Mr. Kaufman.
No, I want to hear what.
Quit lose that hectoring tone, or this will be over shortly, I can guarantee you. Do you understand?
It was over in October,
Not
when you
meant
told
to
me
you, but
something
not
and
to
now you're
us.
backing down.
Mr. Kaufman, if you think you're going to advance your project's interests by using that tone, I advise you against it. Do you understand? We're all volunteers up here and don't need to be yelled at over and over again.
I don't mean to yell. I
That's what you're
apologize if
doing.
my tone is.
That's what you're doing. Again, it's a hectoring tone. Please avoid it. Let me put it to you this way. What you're talking about is the new plan. Ms. Moss is the keeper at the gate, so to speak. If she says it's administratively complete, it comes to us. We've been under discussions without a formal application. I believe there's still a formal application. I'm not even sure there is one thus far. But and with Ms. Moss saying that there are now changes that she thinks are substantial enough that it must come under the new zoning, you had an opportunity to appeal that to the Zoning Board of Appeals, as Ms. Polidori pointed out. That's what's called an administrative remedy. You've not undertaken that yet, but that would be who you would be making this argument to. In other words, not us, but to the ZBA, because they're the ones who can overrule TAD. We can't. The discretion you're talking about, I believe the way that Victoria is certainly interpreting the code is that we could have that discretion in that 3-year time period. That 3-year time period is at an end. We would still be using some kind of discretion tonight to pass this along anyway, even though it's past 3 years. But that's the discretion we have. In other words, is to approve and extend what is approved now.
Okay, so let me first
In
address.
other words, in the 6 months, you would have time to make a new to address what she thinks is incomplete, or go to the ZBA and talk to them and say, I don't believe this is true.
Right. First, let me point out one thing. The letter was not a official zoning determination. It was an opinion letter. It was a comment letter. And it was, and now, tonight, I am handed back my applications. I am advised that it's been deemed incomplete, so that meter should run from tonight, not from when she wrote a letter that was an advice to the board.
That's between you, I don't
Oh.
represent the town, only represent the planning board. You
Right.
can take that up with Ms.
Right.
Moss
Okay.
and with the
Well,
town.
I only want to take up what you guys have the
By
power
way,
to
I'm
do.
not sure the difference between Ms. Moss rendering an opinion versus a decision.
Well, I don't know that I could have,
there's-
I don't know that I could have appealed that letter. I can appeal this. But like you say,
I don't know.
that's for another place and another day.
Let me put it this way, the opinion you're referring to is in the file. It's part of a file copy, so that makes it, I think, an official part of the record, which means it could be appealed. That's how I think, but I'm not an attorney.
So is it the determination of this board that if Tad's letter saying it's incomplete because the zoning that's going to be applied is the new zoning for NC, is it this board's opinion that they have no choice. But if they had a choice, they would allow me to use the other prior zoning? Because
Well-
that's what I was told.
I believe that we don't have a choice, but we're also, these are legal questions, and we obviously always defer to our legal consultant. None of us are attorneys up here and don't have legal expertise, even though we may pretend we do. No, just teasing. We always defer to Victoria, so I'm listening to what Victoria is saying, and we don't have a choice.
The
the new
zoning
application.
administrator is the gatekeeper in the town of Hyde Park. She intakes the applications, she decides when they're complete enough to go to the planning board, and she decides, whether a use is allowed in the first instance or if not, whether a variance is needed or if not, whether a use variance is needed or if not. That is her role. She's issued this letter, and the planning board is now bound by it.
So Michael, I have a quick question.
Sure, please, Chris.
In the event Mr. Kaufman appealed Tad's letter, right, and the zoning board of appeals overturned Tad's letter,
And we are bound by
then
it.
we would have the discretion.
It depends on how their opinion is written.
Sure, if they
And
overturned
that's where
everything
our
and said,
discretion would
we
come into play. But
100%
until
agree
then,
with
we can't.
Lou,
Right.
the planning board has the ability to review this, then
Yeah.
it would come back before this board.
So am I seeking an interpretation from the zoning board?
You're gonna seek counsel.
appeal.
I can't advise you what to.
I believe it's called an appeal, isn't it? Zoning Board of Appeals? It could be in other words, they're going to be interpreting the code as well. They are a higher level of interpretation than Tad. And by the way,
Michael has an honorary law degree.
no. I've learned something about going to the ZBA. When I was first appointed, and we had some ambiguities, we'll call them, in the code, you sometimes get the answer you want from the ZBA depending on how you phrase the question, if that makes any sense. And I did open-ended questions at first and got nowhere. So we determined those as an interpretation because Tad wasn't clear either.
It's an appeal of the determination of the zoning administrator in which they're being asked to interpret the code in order to decide the appeal. So
Right. Okay.
6 of
so
one, half dozen of the other.
Yeah, because there are 3 types of appeal as I read it now, and one is an interpretation appeal. And I'm not yet appealing and seeking a variance, which is another form of appeal, where
Correct.
it's not really an appeal, it's really an application for a variance.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, John.
What's triggering the event?
Of what?
Well, she obviously saw something that's triggering the need for,
Right.
what are the items? I mean, the items I think I read where you want to change the bridge, was that it?
Well, it seems to be,
What's triggering?
it seems to be
'Cause
that
if you
the,
don't do those items, you don't have to go before the Z, right?
well, that's another question I have for the board. So is it the
Right.
board's, so if I wanted to build the old plan today, my approval is in place?
Not yet.
Well, you haven't met
It
the
would be,
conditions.
it would here, the time lapsed under your approval, and you have made a timely application for us to extend the approval, but you don't have an approval right now at all. We have to be able to close it and give you that extension.
Okay, and the extension is until, is for 6 months, right?
This one is for 6 months, but in truth, if you started construction, we'd have to start extending it because you can't finish in 6 months.
Right.
But you also have a lot of permits that you would need in order to start construction that I
Yes.
don't believe are valid.
Yeah, I have to either revive or,
I
you
mean,
know,
my thinking in
reapply.
this was basically that you have made a new application. This one, once we start processing the new application, if it's under the new code, then it's going to replace this one anyway, so we would get to having another approval on that new application.
Mhm. Okay, let me ask another question of the board.
This preserves, though, your approval, yes.
Yeah. What is the purpose of the bond at this time? You already, before, had allowed the bond to be posted before a building permit was issued. Why would you compel me to post a bond now for a site plan that's never going to be built? Why would you do that?
So, I mean, I guess I'll ask the question to you, why are we extending a site plan
Right.
that's never gonna be
If it's never going to be
built?
built, this is a fiction, what are we doing?
Right. What are we arguing?
It's a waste of my time.
Okay, I will build 317 units. I just can't right now because I have wetlands there. So are you willing, if I get a DEC permit that says you can't build on that portion of the ground, but you can build everything else. Are you good with that? Or do I have to amend my site plan?
You would basically then do your site plan in phases, and you just wouldn't finish the final phase. You wouldn't need to have COs on it. You could proceed under this site plan, as I understand it, to build whatever units you are allowed to based on any other permits you receive from an involved agency, such as DEC.
Okay. And so I still don't understand the urgency of posting a bond right now. Whether or not, I mean, I just don't get that.
No, so the bond is required. In this case, in your case, you've claimed that you've started substantial construction. Your substantial construction is roughing out the roads. That's what the infrastructure bond is supposed to guarantee that could be finished. If the board wants to move that to a condition upon building permit, we can change that into the resolution.
Well, I would think that based upon the fact that that was granted in the past, I would
Well,
think that would be.
there was already a bond put up.
Yeah, so why is there
And
no
it was
road?
reduced, and it was reduced once, but then the bond lapsed and no one has ever done
Well, how did
anything.
that happen? Why didn't you
The guy
compel,
with-
why
the guy
didn't you
with
compel
Key
Keybank to put it in?
Excuse me, the planning board cannot compel things like, there's no section of code that I can take an
There were
action
no
under to
building
sue.
permits issued either, so there wouldn't have been any need for the town to come in and finish the road because there were no building permits.
We also, we now.
Okay, so let's say there's no buildings, well, you can't build a building until you finish the road in this town, which is a fascinating,
No, it's not it's not fascinating. All towns that, I work in, that if you have a road that's part of a project, there's no building permits that are issued for the project until the road is built to at least the binder course of asphalt, and then the top course is finished.
so you
before-
can't get a building permit until you have 80% complete, something like that,
I mean,
right?
under state law, you can't get a building permit.
Right,
unless
it's
there's
under state
access.
law too.
you
So
have to have access.
what are you, and you would never build a road that doesn't service the units, right?
Right.
Okay, so what's the purpose of the bond right now?
It's required under our code. The bond was already put up. It's been reduced once. We can't reduce it again. So the purpose was to update, to get a correct estimate of the costs, current costs, to understand what the bond is. Again, if the board has discretion in which to move this as a condition over to issuance of building permit, then I will call upon the board when it's time for me to discuss this with them and see what their thoughts are.
Okay. One other thing on the bond. I don't think Pete realized that significant amount of the improvements that were being bonded.
No, I do realize it, Lou, and, and these.
You did realize it.
I did realize it, and there's hardly anything that was put in that had to do with the town road like itself. There was things that were put in, maybe 15 years ago, 12 years ago, that who knows if they're any good anymore. There was some catch basins that were put in, there was some sub-base. The town did not bond the water line, so there was no bonding on the water line. The only thing that we bonded was, the sub-base, the pavement, the sidewalks, the bridge. So, yes, there was some things that were put in that had to do with the town road. I don't know, maybe it came up to like $100,000 of work. I don't know. I don't think it's that much. So, being that it's, whatever it is, 12 years old, 15 years old, I'm not gonna go waste a lot of time trying to figure out what was put in and what wasn't, and if it's still in good enough shape. I just said, look, let's just go take the old quantities, we'll update, the prices and move
So
on.
you took the original old quantities,
Yeah,
and you made no, and yet, despite the fact that you also knew that the original bond, the original amount of $1,140,000 had now been reduced to $676,000, you didn't think that was relevant.
the original bond was reduced.
And you're saying that since 2012, when the bond was reduced to $676,000, it has increased fourfold, threefold?
Yeah. Yeah, based upon today's prices, yeah. The bridge in itself, as I said in the memo, I think we had 750,000 just for, the bridge. That's just current prices based upon prevailing wages. So, I mean, these things are old, and who knows if they're any good, what was put in. I assume the sub-base is still good, but I don't know if the catch basins are any good. I
Did you
didn't
know
go-
that there was an as-built of the
Yeah,
property.
you know what, if you're gonna be condescending about it, again, as, you know, Michael said.
I'm sorry,
I mean,
I'm not
gonna.
condescending, that's a legitimate question.
Okay,
Did you
I did-
realize there was an as-built?
I
done
did
by the
realize
town?
there was an as-built, I
Did you look
wasn't.
at it?
Okay, I'm done, thank you.
We haven't received your updated plans. They were not distributed to us because they've been deemed incomplete. So no one has the most recent.
So
plans.
you're done because you didn't take into account things that you had acknowledged years ago, but you didn't think were relevant now, even though we went and we cleaned out the catch basins, we did that, and then we were accused of doing work without a permit because we were cleaning out the catch basins and the other improvements so they would be
You were
visible
cleaning
for
out
the
the
new
catch basins
surveyor.
with no approved SWIP. Do you understand that?
I have an
The
approved SWIP.
Excuse me, your SWIP expired a while back. There have been no SWIP reports for the last 4 years. That's number one. Number two, you were out there with heavy equipment in an area known for Blanding's turtle. You do not have the mitigation measures up anymore. They're falling apart. I was out there, I saw. I didn't make an accusation. I made a point to tell Tad that there was work being done to make sure that it was being done properly. That's all. There's no accusation if I saw it with my own
There's an answer for
eyes.
everything here.
If I saw it with my own eyes, Lou,
Except the fact
there's
that there was a
not an
commitment to
accusation.
me to allow the old zoning, that's gone. But the rest of it, that's all, there's an answer for everything here. Very interesting. I'm fascinated by the fact that based upon that, I went and I prepared this, including a bridge report and all of that, and now it's like, you know, what I said, oh, that doesn't matter. There was no word in October from Tad, oh, that can't be. So, I don't know. I don't understand why you
Yes,
don't
Stephanie.
understand why I have a
question.
problem.
Do you have land use counsel? I mean, don't you have someone advising you legally on land use that, about these deadlines and requirements and changes in the law?
Sure. I mean, do I have any? I'm relying on
I'm just
my.
saying, you seem confused by what's allowed and not
I
allowed,
don't know.
and she
I-
can't be your lawyer, so I don't know what, you know,
Well,
what you
no,
want from
what I'm
us.
not confused about was the commitment by this board. That was very clear. So
I
I'm
don't think
not,
there
so
was
I
a
mean, my
commitment.
frustration is based upon what has been said in the past.
So let's calmly go through this again. Number one, there's been discussion back and forth, and much of it offline. Tad now believes that the project has changed enough that it should come under the new zoning. That's basically what this boils down to. Tad, in October, I've got to go back and look through the minutes, but back in October, I'm not sure she realized that this was going to not be a public road, that there would be other issues. They are all solvable, Lou. We can solve all of them. But when Tad makes, I was surprised by the letter as well, but we're bound by Tad. If you think that if you think that that's incorrect, then you need to appeal that to the ZBA. We are not going to make that decision
I
tonight.
get that message. That's fine.
That's basically it. So the question is do you want us to close the public hearing and extend the original approval or
Well,
not?
Obviously, Mr. Chairman.
We just have a minute, please.
Sure. Because I'm having none of Board agrees. That's what I said, we can do it.
Okay, there's two separate issues here, of course, and that's been clearly noted all along. One is, we want to
Right.
amend our site plan to reflect current conditions, probably we consider it a better plan. I think you have expressed your interest in.
We've been discussing this for a
Yeah, and,
while.
you know, and all okay, all grand, and, you know, the bridge and the road, I believe we have solutions to what made that a big change for Tad. I think there are statutes in the town law that allow for the use of a private road under a open
Open development
development area, which would cure that. However, I just want to point out, that really is not a relevant issue to this site plan. That road,
If you
our
mean
lot
to
could
the
be.
old site plan, no, because it's right now approved as a public road.
Right,
If you mean
but
to
even
new
under the
site
new
plan,
one,
That's Tad's interpretation, though. Again, you're arguing to the wrong people. Either argue to Tad, but it's, or
Well,
go to the
would Tad
ZBA.
reconsider it if I discussed it with her?
You'll have to ask Tad. Make your arguments to Tad. I mean, she
I'm sorry,
pretty much
Ms. Wasserman.
reconsidered this.
I understand,
No,
maybe, this is my opportunity to open up a discussion, and I apologize if I got a little excited about it. This is my first opportunity to wonder what the board is thinking when it said something in October, and Tad she vetoed it, and now everybody's saying, well, it's Tad.
As-
I just want to know how that works. So
But-
I apologize if
No,
I
no,
seem a little frustrated by what's going on here.
My nonverbal response is that I think you've heard a number of times, we cannot make that decision. It has to be taken up with Tad, and you keep coming back to it. We cannot tell Tad
I
what
got
to
you.
do.
I won't repeat myself anymore about that situation. I would appreciate it if you would continue the extension, understanding, of course, that if I in fact build this project the way it is now, I would have to get the permits back in place, that you would consider another extension while I build that. In the interim, I will hopefully have cured any incomplete issues with the application to
And there
Tad's satisfaction. For tonight, I would appreciate the extension being granted. I also would appreciate if you would amend the resolution to put over the bond. First, I would like to discuss with Pete the amount of the bond. I don't think that's accurate. But certainly, as was granted in the past, allow the bond to be posted prior to the building permit being issued, rather than prior to the extension being granted. If you can see a way clear to that, I'll try and cure the rest of it now, and I will have the evening to cure my other problem, my upset frustration.
So,
Your passion.
colleagues, how do you feel about amending condition 2, posting updated performance guarantee in the amount of
Wait, I'm
2.251?
sorry.
The whole thing would just say at the
Yeah,
end,
yeah,
prior
it's
to
two,
issuance of a building
condition
permit. Yeah, I would just add prior to the issuance of a building permit.
I have no issue with that.
Hold on, we gotta do a few changes. If we're gonna do it, maybe we take a quick recess so that I can, or
Can
we
I-
start with Camp Victory Lake?
Are you keeping item 3, the posting of the escrow of 67,000?
No, that would be like delayed also.
Okay. Thank you
Late
for
to
your,
win.
thank you for
Well,
Wait,
the,
building,
wait.
well, the bond, I mean, the inspection fee and the bond go hand in hand, so.
But the inspection fee would also, you would be inspecting, if, let's just say they start this project up, they would need a building permit to continue the road construction. You have to inspect the road construction, right?
they've been asking for escrows all along, and we've been paying them,
wait a
so.
minute, yeah, that's, yeah, we would, if they were gonna go ahead, like, and start and move
You'd be
along with the
inspecting, because
construction.
I see the bills where you have to
Yeah.
inspect the stuff
No,
they're
you're
doing
right
for
on that.
initial work. And because that's not tied to that would be tied to a SWIP, being able to do the road, I take it.
Yeah, we have,
But he'd have to have the SWIP before he could actually start construction again, is what I'm trying to say.
So can we tie it to the issuing of
Because
SWIP?
there's no building permit given for road work, right?
no,
To the building permit's only for structures, not infrastructure. So what is the triggers that would allow them to move forward besides my signing a site plan?
What about the switch?
Wouldn't they have to have a SWIP or an ESC in place that would be followed for the work, or?
yeah, so, but let's say,
May I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
The amount that Pete did was a mathematical calculation based upon the bond amount.
The amount of the bond, right?
Right, and I would ask to have the bond reconsidered. In that event, if you want me to post some additional escrow for the time being, I could accept that. I think 67, based upon where he went with that, But of course, let me point out, you don't do anything unless I pay an escrow, and he made it very clear. So I don't think I'm going to avoid that obligation.
So what we can change, I can move what's now conditions 2 and 3, which are the posting of the bond and the inspection escrow, under where it talks, be it further resolved, before any disturbance on the site, including any grading and tree removal, the applicant shall, and then make A, repair and reinstall all planned external mitigation measures, B, post an updated performance guarantee in form, amount, substance of matter, and execution acceptable to attorney of the town and town engineer, and then C, post the inspection escrow.
So are you,
Prior, so basically it's prior to starting any work.
right, but I mean, so it's not prior to the building permit for the.
It's prior to any disturbance, so any disturbance, even if it doesn't require building permit. If you go
Right,
out
so
there
you're
and start
asking me to
taking trees
post the
down-
bond prior to disturbance,
Yeah,
Correct, right,
not prior to the building permit.
right.
Because
Which should be okay with you, no? I mean, why
Well,
would that
that's
be?
what you had it, you know, previously approvals. The bond had to be posted prior to the building permit issuance. So why is that changing now?
because, well, we want the inspection escrow to start as soon as you start
I'm
moving the
not, I'm not
dirt.
disputing that. I'm not, you know, that's something else. That's a
I
legitimate.
don't know, if you're gonna start the project in earnest and start building, why can't you post a performance bond?
Okay, so again, I try to look at like both sides because I do sit on the other side of the fence at times. So, so the performance bond, we would only ever call a bond if there was a building permit that was issued and COs were like ready to be like issued, so.
and the developer or the project
Right,
sponsor wouldn't
so,
build the road.
but the inspection fee, the posting of that could be like separate from the posting of the bond. Now, what's the correct like trigger point for that? Disturbance, I gotta think about it. I mean, I think as part of, I think there's already improved, I gotta think about this. Because you've already filed like an NOI and you've kept, I believe that the current stormwater permit has been kept active.
Speedies is active.
Is that right? Speed's permit has been kept active. So we couldn't go tie the inspection fee to issuance of a SWIP approval because there's already a SWIP in place and there's a Speedy's permit. So the only other thing that I can
Wait,
think of
does the
is
SWIP
just,
lapse if there have been no reports for 4 years? It's still valid?
I don't know
There's no
that.
activity, so what are
You're
you
still supposed to
reporting
put
on?
reports
Well,
even
you
for
can, I
no
mean, you can,
activity.
you're supposed to file, if there
Right.
isn't any activity, you're supposed to file, a form that the town would approve that says, hey, all activity has, like ceased and, before that we start up again, then we'll start reports again,
Yeah, I
but.
may be mistaken, but I believe we notified the town, but I don't know.
All right, so if you want to consider the delay of the posting of an inspection fee, because if they do decide to start up, the road construction, we would need to like inspect. The only thing I can think of is what Victoria had said is prior to any like disturbance.
What about an ESC?
This is too big.
Yeah.
It's definitely a SWIP.
Victoria, what is any
Well,
disturbance?
having said that, I don't know,
You know-
we do have, since the project was approved, we do have a town stormwater management permit that covers either, a full SWIP for a big project or an erosion sediment control permit for a smaller project. So, being that SWIP's already approved, we could have Lou take out a stormwater management permit, a town stormwater management like permit, which
Well,
is,
we're requiring both a SWIP and a local stormwater permit
okay, so then,
before a building permit's issued.
all right, but if he wants, so he can't,
The
so.
issue is,
so-
the issue is when the performance guarantee is gonna be posted. I mean, another option we have tonight is just to close the hearing, and you can vote on a resolution at the next meeting. We can redraft it, but
That would give time for, if Peter and Lou want to talk more about the bond amount, they can.
I also have a question, Victoria. How do you define any disturbance?
it's a little vague, but here we did a broadening of it to say including any grading and tree removal. So,
So inspection time would be appropriate to
yes.
book money
once-
for
once they
inspection
start-
time?
Yes.
Okay.
The inspection definitely has to occur at that point. Money for inspection has to be posted at that time. The question is, when is the right time for
The bond.
the road bond? And generally on projects, it's a condition of approval, a subdivision approval, that the road bond be posted.
Right. And
I mean, that's-
I'm requesting that the board postpone
understand.
that until, as it has in the past, until the issuance, prior to issuance of a building permit.
So
That's what
why
I
don't
meant.
we take this up in 2 weeks, or whatever our next meeting is, sorry.
And then we can figure out about the, like, inspection fee, because I
And we can
understand,
refine the resolution.
I
instead of trying to
understand
do it
what
up
Lou
on
was
the
saying,
day.
that he wouldn't have to post a bond until he takes out a building permit, and we won't issue a building permit until, the road is pretty much in. So but we
But
need.
then
an-
why don't we need the road bond if he's starting work on the road? Oh, okay, I understand.
No,
I
because,
understand.
he wouldn't be, he and any other like developer in
never
most
put a
towns
unit in.
can never put a unit in or start construction on a unit until, the road is built. So then the road bond would actually just be, I gotta make sure that.
So because there's no individual lots, there's no chance that he's going to sell a lot to an unsuspecting homeowner who will then get stuck without a road. That's when, in a subdivision, you put the
Right,
bond in
that's
up
right.
front because people can buy lots and then never be able to build.
That's a good point. This is
Here,
more of a commercial
It's more of
type.
a site plan.
That's correct.
So
That's
there
a
may
good
be
point.
some justification for treating it differently if the board,
This is a site plan.
Yeah,
It's not a
so
subdivision application, it's strictly site plan.
Victoria's 100% like right. If it's a strict subdivision with 20 lots in it, you want the bond so that the developer can't sell the lots to anybody and then just say bye-bye. So,
The subdivision already occurred here. There's a subdivided lot for the wastewater treatment facility, et cetera. Those could be sold off, but there's no site plan to show a house or anything else on it. So I think that we can treat this up differently.
and then actually, if this ends up working out where, the bond would be posted before the building permit like is issued, then the developer's bond is gonna be substantially less because all the major improvements would be in except for, the top, basically
The
top
problem
portion.
is that we would be passing the resolution now to have the bond amount, and you can only reduce the bond once under our code based on work that's been done, and it
Well,
was
can't-
already it was already
we-
reduced
we can-
once.
We
we
can
can
pro-
word it now because it's a future amount.
Right.
We can word it to say that the bond has to be posted in form, substance, manner of execution, and amount acceptable to
Okay.
attorney
There you
and
go.
town
That's
engineer,
right. Right.
because
That's right.
costs
And
probably will keep going up.
And, the bond amount that is come up with at that point in time, I have to make a recommendation to the planning board. The planning board has to
Make a
approve that
recommendation to the town
amount,
board.
and then it goes to,
The town
the
board.
town board along with the form and the substance and all that kind of stuff, so.
So,
I mean, that's doable. The issue is gonna be though, what do we do again in 6 months? Presumably, there will be some progress on the new plans.
let's reconsider the resolution for the next meeting.
No.
And if the board wants to grant more than 6 months, grant a year, we can. I'm just trying to get Lou and Tad to be on the same page with this application. I actually have seen it. Cynthia let the chair, naughtily enough, take an unstamped one home. So I've actually gone through it, that's why I know it's extensive. But it's not stamped, and so it's not official, so I'm not supposed to look at it, if you get what I'm saying. So, but nobody else received one. It's just me being nosy and Cynthia indulging me. So if we can get a motion to close by the way, would anyone from the public like to speak tonight? Mr. Sander, would you like to speak about this application?
No, I think there's been enough.
Mr. Brandt's part of the application, thank you, we sort of feel the same way. Anyone else want to weigh in on the board, from the board? Or ask questions?
No, thank you. I think we should,
I think it's a good idea to go back and think through the exact wording on the resolution. I personally would be okay with a longer extension if we did that.
Okay. Everyone else? Longer extension?
The only thing I had was just in 2, it talks about the Blandings turtle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it says right here, before any disturbance on the site. What is that? Heavy equipment's gonna go in, right?
That would be disturbance like for grading, heavy equipment, yes. So the Blandings turtle mitigation measures that were installed, I think might even be dated. I think the standard protocols now have changed a little bit from the DEC.
So you want that?
And is there any bat issue there?
Well, they've already
With
taken
tree
down,
removal?
they've already taken down all the trees.
Oh, okay.
It's sort of a lunar landscape with successive growth,
I didn't
ailanthus and junk trees back
Okay.
there now. So it's one of the reasons why, at least while Ann and I have been on the board, because we're the longest serving, we've tried to move this project forward because it's already, the land's destroyed, it's disturbed highly. And by the way, as a technical thing, we were having some fights over Bellafield. To some engineers, disturbance means taking a tree's roots out. If they cut down 5 acres of trees but leave the stumps in,
Stumps.
that's disturbance to me, just saying.
So we can better define disturbance as well. If I
Yeah.
welcome
Yes.
I
ideas
think
for the
that would be
resolution.
That'd be good.
I would
Send them
be
my-
surprised if the board thought there was anything that wasn't disturbance on this property. It's very clear. It's, but
Well, I do want to point out,
I'm
Lou,
going to try and
you're in-
limit the rest of my words.
Your parcel is in a critical environmental area. That's been identified by the town and
Yeah,
adopted
that's-
as the area that has the most sensitive environmental resources we have. Now, this project was approved before it was a CEA, so I give that full due. But that's one of the reasons why DEC made you lose some of your densities, because they consider it to be highly sensitive environmentally as well. So, I mean,
That's what I read.
it's
That's
a,
why
it's a
I'm
tough, it's a
raising
tough
it.
piece of land to develop, let's be honest. That's why it's been in abeyance so long before anything moved forward. So if everyone is okay with a longer extension,
Yeah, I would support a longer extension, but
Okay.
I think they need some time to work it out for the next meeting.
correct. And if everyone's okay, then may I get a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. So we'll placehold this for 2 weeks, or the next meeting in June, I should say. I feel like it might be longer than 2 weeks.
It'll be June by then.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, is our first meeting June 1st?
I think it is.
It is exactly 2 weeks.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll have a new resolution for you on June 1st.
Okay, thank
Have a
you.
good night. Next item on the agenda is continued public hearing for Camp Victory Lake. This is for a master plan and Phase 1, which involves a sanctuary. This is located at the intersection of Cardinal Road and Crum Elbow. May I get a motion to reopen the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. And I think we're just here for an update tonight, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Sanders, yes.
It's been so long. Hello, everyone. How you guys doing?
You're real. I think I've only ever seen you on.
He's been here before.
Before. I've been here for like 3 years.
Well, we had a gap, we had a lacuna, a gap there for a bit.
Yeah.
When COVID first hit.
We're still hanging out on Zoom. That counts.
Yes, except I think we went a whole year before you guys pulled it together because there was some delay on your part, too.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm back. So
welcome.
Pete was absolutely correct. DPW did take a little bit of time to get a response out to us. So I'm not sure if everyone received a copy. I know Cynthia.
Yeah, we
sent
did.
it out.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Don't worry.
Yep. So, basically, they're fairly minor comments on this, and I have responses kind of fleshed out, and we consulted with our traffic engineer to see his professional recommendation on this as well. So, because we just got this earlier
This
this
week,
week, we
I
just
know.
haven't had a chance
It's
to
okay.
really get something formulated. But overall, we're not very concerned with this, just because I think we can handle it.
I
So,
don't think Peter was concerned, nor us. They're asking for additional information, but
Yeah.
some of the information is actually already in there. They just didn't
Right.
pull it out.
that's
Didn't hear me say that.
Yeah, I mean, I said it plenty of times when I was in the office, kind of losing it a little bit, but you know how it is.
You'll point it out.
Yeah, of course. So,
Sometimes you have to actually lead the horse to water and make it drink.
yeah.
It's one of my
case.
favorite sayings.
So at any rate, in the interim, we have the letter from DCDP, Department of Public Works, for anybody watching, because this is located at the intersection of 2 county roads. And there was some details about sightline, et cetera, but I think that's also pretty much in there too. It's asking for landscaping to be removed, et cetera, et cetera. You can just tighten up what you have, provide anything additional
Yeah.
for them. We also received a letter from an adjacent parcel, the Eleanor, which I'll need to respond to. This is a nursing home center that's located just to the north. We also received a letter from Kelly Redl Hardesty and her husband David Hardesty.
Yep.
And then we have also comments from the CAC, which I think you already responded to. if I
Yes,
remember
I'm
correctly.
pretty sure our last submission
Yes, you
handled
did.
those comments.
You did. So I think those are all taken care of, but we'll have to review those as well.
Mhm.
So that's basically all that we've seen, because we don't have new plans. We're waiting on you to.
Yeah. And we were waiting on this, but it doesn't sound like we're gonna have to really tweak it all that much. So I think we're in pretty good shape now.
Well, there was some site distance information, right,
That's what I
that
was
they
saying,
wanted,
They were
so,
asking specifically.
you know, I think you're gonna have to get that to them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I can, if you need me to, I can help try to push them along. I mean, I've got a pretty good, you know, relationship with them over there.
Yeah.
And, but we just need something like conceptual from them, not necessarily all the, you know, the details are worked out, but
To
that,
include seeker.
but
We need
that,
something-
you know, yes, you know, like, we're okay with, you know, the
Mhm.
driveways, you know, we need some more information, but yes, you know, we're okay with what you're proposing. You know, that, they're okay with working out, which it sounds like it is, a traffic, management plan for the larger, like, events, details like to follow, but at least so we can get through, the secret process, just, if we had, as long as we have something we can hang our hat on, you know,
Yeah.
with them, and then, you know, details will get, you know, worked out, and then we can at least get past that hump,
Perfect.
if you will.
I mean, our goal right now is to get through seeker.
Mhm.
Right.
That way you can get your variances, assuming that they're going to be granted by the ZBA, because they can't take that action until we do.
Yep.
So, and we've been waiting to conclude seeker really on DCDPW.
Right.
Plus, I believe that the letter from the owner of the Eleanor raised some seeker issues, or seeker-ish issues, I'll call them.
A lot of those, I read through them as everybody else did, you know, a lot of those are gonna be dealt with as they go through the health department
Yep.
process. There
I know.
was, you know, like capacities and this and that, and I think there was a question on, you know, sewage, you know, capacity.
Lots of stormwater stuff as well.
Yeah,
which is
so I
handled by
think you can
SWIPs.
answer those. I mean, you know, the stormwater, we've already covered, you know, with the preliminary stormwater pollution prevention, you know, plan. I don't know, the proximity of their wells to where your wells are, but, and, you know, if the pumping, I don't think the pumping capacity is gonna be tremendously more. It might be, but that's something for the health department to look at. I mean, if there's gonna be pump tests that are gonna be done on your wells, you know, the health department may like require you to, monitor,
Potential
you know,
drawdown.
you know, Eleanor's wells, subject to their like approval of you doing that. And, but again, that's just something that the health department
Yeah,
will
just something
deal
we
with.
work out kind of separately with them. So,
Right.
All right. Yeah, fairly straightforward. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased that we're back in this, because it's been a little bit of a gap. So,
Some of the responses, in other words, I like to keep a very clean record in case we're sued. Victoria knows this, because we were sued twice and won both times. No, we approved things. We were not sued by the applicant, we were sued by disgruntled neighbors, or disgruntled fellow property owner, who hired actually Chazen to come and watch us to help him make his case against us. It was
Really?
interesting. Yes, I've never.
oh, that's fun.
I haven't had engineers and consultants, like, writing down notes of everything we said that time, but we won because we have a good record. So what I always like to see is responses directly to, say, the letter from the Eleanor that just says, response, see SWIP, just so that it's check, 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 that's all.
Perfect.
I'm not sure anyone's going to be litigious here, but there are people who, yes,
attention.
yes.
They are
So,
paying attention.
interestingly, no one signed up, or no one has appeared tonight to speak, which is always
Why-
interesting to me, so.
Why they write letters, and that's fine. You can write a letter, that's
But that,
the
we've
same.
only, the letters we've received are all that we've received. I keep hearing that there are concerns by neighbors across the street. I'm like, where are they?
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
that particular house doesn't have very many neighbors. I've looked it up on Google. It's pretty isolated. So, but yeah, we will absolutely provide a response for both the Eleanor and the neighbor.
For that matter, what I mostly heard from comments were marching bands and loud music till all night long. I was like, okay. I've
which
been
our
by there,
building
it's-
will help kind of contain, because it'll
That's
be
what
inside.
That's what I keep pointing out. Part of the purpose of this is to take the outdoor programmatic activities and put them indoors.
Mhm.
So, and I think some people were concerned when they initially saw an amphitheater, thinking there were going to be Woodstock, apparently
Yeah.
concerts there.
Well, and the other thing too is that, I mean, we're approving, or you're approving, a master plan and the first like phase. So subsequent like phases, they're gonna have to come back for site plan approval.
Correct.
Yeah.
And there may
So-
be changes even to the master
so,
plan,
you
depending on
know,
what activities they find that they want, and maybe don't want, new ones,
Right,
whatever.
so there'll be
Ample opportunities ahead.
future site plan approvals, future public like hearings.
Future stormwater plans
Future
for each
opportunities
phase.
to comment.
Yeah.
On like specific items, but, like right now, and that's probably one of the answers that you should like put in there, that this, we're approving a master plan. Subsequent like phases beyond the first phase are gonna have to come back before the town like planning board for site plan approval and, additional, hearings, so.
Yeah. Perfect. I will take that into account. Can I name drop you, or?
No.
No,
No.
Ms. Polidoro does not like me or
Strike
anyone
that from the
else.
record.
She doesn't like me
No,
or
my
anyone
name
else
is no
helping
good
applicants by coaching them along that way, believe me.
You were here for the last 45
No, I
minutes.
didn't hear anything. No, nothing at all.
You're pushing
A fully
MP.
formulated argument by the applicant, none input. Is that what I've been missing all these months? I would have came just for the heck of it.
Bring some popcorn.
No, actually,
Yeah, right?
we
Bring it for
prefer never to
everyone.
have any contention at these meetings.
Right.
We pride ourselves
rare.
on trying to be a board that works together
Yeah.
with applicants
Sure,
until
it
we get to a
happens.
place
It's like,
to
hey,
say yes.
They have like a
It's
position.
business.
One more time,
It's
we've
business.
denied an application
It's
once in the
money.
last 17 years, and it was for a self-storage that's in
Waited.
Bellafield, that it can't meet the criteria to increase tourism and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I said, just get yourself out of that district, because we're gonna have to do this.
Do it somewhere else.
Yes.
You just need a piece of flat
Oh, I'm sorry,
property.
we did reject a sign once.
Purple and green.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Green. What?
Predominantly
Purple and
purple.
green?
At any rate, so you're going to wait and keep us posted as we go along. There's no one here to speak tonight. Any additional comments from our consultant?
I did miss the beginning, but, we're waiting to finish seeker, and so once that information is provided,
Yeah,
the board can take
That's
that
what
step.
we covered that in your absence, I promise. Colleagues, any comments?
I did have a question, because one of the comments was about the water usage.
Sure.
And because we are doing seeker on the master plan,
Mhm.
right? So I know that your neighbor, the Eleanor, they have water storage tanks, right?
Yes.
That they need to do because probably of their usage and drawdown.
They
Is
came
that,
before us for this a while back.
Oh, okay.
yeah, they had to replace them, I believe. And so I was just wondering, because in my memory, I kind of remember a water tower.
We also have water storage on our site. We have
yes.
the water tower, which is a 10,000 gallon tank, and then we have another 3 10,000 gallon tanks that provide us water as well.
Okay, so
Pretty sure
that-
it's 3.
So my question is, would that be part of seeker if they are kind of, instead of doing one big gigantic pull every time that people come to, that they've actually stored it so that when people come, they're not doing huge drawdown? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
guessing that's part of the,
Yeah, so to be honest, I'm not the water guy in our office, but I'm assuming that is how the site functions, because other than that, I don't know how you would be able to
Can you confirm
continuously
that?
pump
You should
water.
give us
But
an
I will
idea.
absolutely
Confirm
confirm
that
it.
for us.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Also include in the explanation whether or not you anticipate additional visitors as a result of
Mhm.
this plan.
Okay.
Well, and the other thing too, I'm thinking about is that as you come back in for subsequent like phases, like after the first phase is built, all right, so now you're gonna have new, water use, actual, like water use, values. So as you come in for subsequent like phases, that could be, the water usage issue, I don't want to say issue, but that could be
Extra design. That's
looked at like
was
again,
something
the
we
only
could
thing
look
is
at a
we're,
little more.
Ann is right, we are doing like seeker now on the whole like deal, so, let me go think about that, because that's like a good point. Let me think about that, and what we have done in the past is, if there's a concern about, a neighbor and potential drawdown, I've contacted the Department of Health, and like alerted them to please make sure that they take that into consideration in their like review, of the project. If it's, again, depending on the proximity of, the wells to each other, it may or may not be an issue, but that's a good point.
Yeah. Well, I would assume that
You got like points tonight.
All right.
we are at least probably over 1,000 feet, maybe more, from where their well could possibly be to where our wells are. So,
Yeah, I mean, I
plus a
think
river
that-
and a
that's-
lake in between.
And
So,
you have an intervening space that you're sort of treating as an environmental preserve as well.
exactly. So that's kind of also, it kind of helps with the aquifer recharge on that. And it's actually preserving the space by their property as well. So,
So are you before, you're before the health department now for your first phase, obviously, or
Yeah.
maybe you haven't like submitted yet, but you will be, right?
yeah, we're getting all the connections worked out because again, it's
Okay.
really nothing, we're just hooking up to the existing system that we have across the river. So it's not even us creating a new sort of treatment, it's just hooking up to the existing
Yeah,
system.
but you're gonna have to still get approval from them for your
Correct.
distribution lines.
Yes.
So has anybody been at least in like touch with them on a preliminary basis?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Tom has been working
Tom.
with them on this, so
Okay,
Remember, he's not the water guy.
I talked to the water guy, and the water guy told me this.
the water guy. What about like a sewer guy? No. All right, so I will reach out to Jason T at the health department tomorrow.
Thank you, Pete. And remember, Peter, just get us a letter from Tom, your water guy, about the drawdown of water for large events, whether they utilize the storage, the 10,000 K storage tanks or not. I would think they would. Ann's right. It was a good point. Anyone else have any comments or questions?
Rich? All right.
No?
Okay, so would you,
Yeah, when?
my verbosity earlier is preventing me from speaking correctly now. Too much energy and drama. When would you like us to adjourn this to? We suggested July 20th.
I'm thinking that's probably gonna be the best, just so I can, because depending on how long it might take to get another response
The
back.
problem is the other agencies were aware, and please thank your clients again for all their patience
Yes.
over all this time.
Yeah, they've been great on this.
I
They-
agree.
Yeah, they haven't even really been concerning me. I tell them, hey, we're still waiting. They're like, okay, that's fine.
No
So-
hollering at you or anything?
No hollering at
All right.
anything.
Remember, I met them.
It's awesome.
I met
It's
them.
very nice. They're very nice people.
I met them in 2006
change that if
when they
you
first
want.
discussed it. They're very patient, but they had to raise the money to get where they are. But now they've raised the money, I feel like they must be going, hurry, hurry.
Yeah.
Because costs keep going up. I keep hearing it from everybody, so at any rate.
Might be coming down.
So making a motion to adjourn this to July 20th?
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries unanimously.
Good teamwork.
I know.
Thanks for your positive energy and
Yes,
attitude.
and your smile. Yeah, I
I
like
You want me
your
to flip a
smile.
chair?
You're such a pleasure to work with.
Darn it. Sorry, I'll pick that up. But yeah, no, it's been great. I actually love working with this board, so.
We like working with
It's a real
you.
pleasure.
We love working with you. We always have smiles on our faces when you leave,
Well,
so
it's way better than frowns or
Uh,
complaints or any of that, so.
totally concur with you, believe me.
Thank you.
Have a nice night. We'll see.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Have a great July 4th holiday.
Yeah, you guys as
I
well.
was looking for, this is all, I just grabbed.
Is that the
board? Yeah, like Highbury. I signed this.
Oh, that thing's still active?
So the next item on the agenda,
This is.
Okay, yes.
next item on the agenda
Alpha sign.
is Hyde Park Town Center, also called Park Plaza. So we have a change in tenancy. We have a change in tenancy. I am told that I believe that it's Supervisor Torgiani's office that's going to go there for a bit, until this board approved his relocation, but until he has the conditions met, et cetera. So he's going to move into where the educational center was before now, so it's basically behind and to the side. Thank you of CVS that's in the plaza. Anybody have any questions?
Nope.
Ms. Moss, we don't always do this, but Ms. Moss wanted this noted because it was a medical use as approved before, and this is a general business use or office use. So she wanted it recorded somehow, but not
Right.
to the extent of having a site plan, et cetera. So, Mr. Waters, I believe I signed this to you. I hope you're okay with that?
Yes, that's fine.
You want me
Yep.
to second?
Yep.
Oh, yes, please do.
Okay.
Hyde Park Town Center, Suite 13, Town Code Section 108-9.4C, 1 and 2, grid number 606402965956, site plan waiver, resolution 2022-20. whereas a request for site plan change in the tenancy of Suite 13 has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Kelly Leibolt, representing the owner of Cosmo Town Center LLC on May 13, 2022, for new business office as general commercial use into Suite 13 that had previously been approved with special use permit and site plan approvals for a medical/daycare use, now being voided in favor of commercial general at 4240-4260 Albany Post Road, and whereas, therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives the site plan requirements as authorized by the Town Code, Section 108-9.4C 1 and 2, for the proposed changes as described in the request of May 13th, 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is a site plan waiver suggestion from a recommendation from our zoning administrator. This is to put in an above-ground pool, a pretty big one for an above-ground, 18 by 33.
Mhm.
That's
Nice.
that's pretty big. Nice. This is located at
It's a
14.
lap pool.
It is, that's right. At 14 Crumwold Place. This isn't directly visible from the river or either one of the historic sites. Anybody have any questions on this one?
No?
And I believe this will be introduced by Vice Chair Next.
That's me. Town of Hyde Park Planning Board. Samuel Moore and Dana Rosado, 14 Crumwold Place, site plan waiver, resolution number 2022-21. Whereas the request for site plan waiver has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Samuel Moore and Dana Rosado for installation of an above-ground pool associated with a single-family home requiring a building permit, and whereas, therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the proposed changes as described in the building permit received by the Building Department, May 4th, 2022, and per the request to the Planning Board dated May 6th, 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Make it a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you to the Town Board and Supervisor Torgiani providing the resources to tape and record and air this. And thanks to our consultants for staying throughout the whole session, despite some of the drama.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we?
Oh. And this is up. Go to the ZBA for recommending for the variances for Quick Stop. And I'm sorry, I just got that. Cynthia reminded me I was supposed to have it out to you today, and I forgot because I was doing a run-through of
It's still today.
graduation. Yes.
It's still today.
Oh, my papa kicked it all the way